Sign up with BetMGM Sports using code CAPITAL200 and win $200 in free bets when you place a $10 moneyline wager on any Major League Baseball game and either team hits a home run. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 years of age or older to wager. Washington, D.C. only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
Hi there, I am Adam Kirbas and this is another episode of my podcast. It is a sunny morning in Ordu in Turkey. It is December. It is December, pretty much cold, pretty much warm compared to Europe here in Turkey. However, we are still in the pandemic. And I hope that you all are doing fine. We will continue our inquiry into rationality and utilitarianism. We some sort of left off yesterday with this famous example which I brought. This is, let's say, those spouses, this prison example. Bonnie and Clyde have robbed a bank and they some sort of want to get free. I will some sort of repeat key assumptions of our prison dilemma there. Your main goal is, or your main objective is not to get free, but to be reunited with your spouse, with your friend, whatever you have. We assume that this emotional connection some sort of means more than just your egoistic purpose. I would state that you find this in reality as well. You find this in some sort of groups, for example, religious groups, and this is what we will talk later on as well. So in religious groups, in ethnic groups, this can be an assumption about us versus them. So a lot of issues play into there. And we said that you some sort of would not snitch on each other. So this means that the legal system does not work because a legal system in the US as well as in other parts of the world pretty much depends on people admitting guilt, because or else if every issue in the US would go to trial, this would be pretty much a hassle. So the legal system would be very exhausted soon. So it depends very much on people admitting crime and so on and so forth. So this is key in our assumption and as well as in reality. And in our prison example, in this scenario, Bonnie and Clyde or your spouse, and so you do not snitch at each other, which is some sort of increases happiness in an utilitarian sense. Again, some of us would assume, this is love, some sort of determines or desire. Some of us assumes that evil or wicked people are not able to feel desire. This is something you pretty much assume in if you read some of the philosophy of the antiquity, the Greeks, for example, there you have to have some special mental or virtuous disposition in order to cherish love and so on. But whatever it is, at least we have to again emphasize that utilitarianism does do away with biases, especially with those values, what is good and bad. This is key assumption in our further inquiry. So utilitarianism do not ask about a question or about an act whether it is good or bad. It is rather about utility. So I repeat this again. So the most utility is for the greatest amount of people. This is how you some sort of determine an action. This is which is good, which then increases happiness. So you, in that sense, and so on and so forth. And we said in our prison example, we have to take into consideration society, because it is some sort of or it is a key issue for society where the criminals are organized themselves and get away with crime. So because then it is most likely that they will commit further crime and so on and so forth. And we said that if criminals walk free, this is a disadvantage to society, because then if they continue committing crimes, people will assume that the legal system is somehow not working. There are plenty examples, so on and so forth. However, in this example, so Bonnie and Clyde stick to each other, stick to each story. They do not incriminate or snitch on each other, and they walk free, and so on and so on. Because we said the police has nothing on them, and one of them, either it was Clyde or Bonnie, pretty much figured out the police or this clever detective is only playing mind games, trying to coax them to confess. And this is bad for society, because in that sense criminals walk free. So utilitarianism pretty much does not work in that sense. Or you would say this is rather against utilitarianism, because it is true that Bonnie and Clyde follow their own happiness. They want to be happy together with each other. It is, we said, from a perspective, it is as well as rational. So it is your own preferences. It can be that you want to be with your spouse, or and so on and so forth. We brought this example as well as on the island. You will most certainly do not feast on your acquaintance or someone you know, and so on. You will try to protect this person in a way or another, because you have an emotional investment. And this is, in that sense, rational, of course. In an utilitaristic view, you would say, no, this is actually bad. This is a bad behavior, because criminals walk free, they stick together. And in a deontological perspective, this would be wrong, because there you always have to say the truth. So I always bring up deontological ethics, because some sort of one might not assume that there is only just one ethical approach. There are many. There are materialistic ethics, there are utilitarianism, as well as deontological. However, deontological ethics and utilitarianism, these are those two main ethical approaches, which firstly a lot of philosophers wrote about, especially or at least in some parts of the world, and so it makes sense in that way to bring deontological ethics forward as well, or some sort of mention it. And there I repeat, deontological ethics does not look at a result, but rather as in the act itself. So this is very important, and there it is, of course, your mind. So what you have in your mind, whether you act good or bad. So this they do, or in a deontological ethics, you do judge between good and bad. You have this knowledge, or if you want to use a term of Immanuel Kant, one of the great advocates of a deontological ethics, and this is, let me translate it from German. This is only act in that way that you would want people act as well, or only only behave towards people you would wanna be treated in the same way. So this is a very famous saying of Kant. I hope I did not botch the translation, but however, this is some sort of key. So only act in that way that you would want others to act as well, and so on and so forth. So this ethics does not consider the result. It is how you act, and so on and so forth. And there, of course, you would say, yeah, well, you do not lie, you say the truth, and so on and so forth. And this is beyond love and so on. Of course, we have to be aware of one thing. This is something from our perspective. This might be pretty much easy, to say, of course, if Bonnie and Clyde, these are criminals, and normally we would assume that if you are you have to do the right thing, and this means that you have to snitch on the woman you love, or that you have to snitch or incriminate the man you love. If this is love, well, this all sounds easy for someone who is not involved in this. So we have to take into consideration it is not everyone so pious. Sometimes you some sort of cannot act in that way. So we don't want to some sort of butcher everyone who acts in a false way. This would be not fair, because it is not easy in reality. And in many law courts, if you are some sort of acquainted with the vic or with someone in the court, or if you are some sort of related to a person, you can some sort of exclude yourself from any report, and so on and so forth. So there are indeed issues which are very crucial. So it is always easy to judge someone from outside, but when you're in there, when this is the love of your life, it is some sort of would be pretty much irrational. This is why it is some sort of very difficult in that sense, and this which is a topic which I would say we would need a lot of debating. Is this true? So would you be willing to some sort of incriminate or snitch on the woman you love? This could be the father of your, or this could be the mother of your children. This is again what we will talk in the next example with those mobsters. So let's say Clyde is of course thinking about snitching on Bonnie, but Bonnie happens to be the mother of his children, and he asks himself, who is going to watch my children, and so on and so forth. So you have a lot of responsibilities and so on. Or if you say, or if Clyde says, well, Bonnie is special, Bonnie is the love of my life, and I do not think that I will ever find a woman like her, and that's why I cannot incriminate Bonnie, even though if I walk free and if I could not meet her again, this would be like hell, and life would not have any meaning whatsoever without the love of my life. So this is pretty much, or this sounds pretty much familiar in some senses, because a lot of people in puberty wrote about stuff, well, I cannot live without the love of my life, and so on and so forth. And this is pretty much happening, as well as, so this is, I think, one of the great incentives to not to incriminate someone you love. Again, with friendships, one might snitch or not, as well as with relatives. Mostly people or families stick together. We have this again recently, so people who are in a way biologically related or are part of the family, they mostly would not snitch on each other, or some sort of collude with each other and so on. So this is here, in that sense, in this example, it is some sort of a positive bond. Your fear in that sense is that you would not meet your spouse again, your accomplice again. So in an utilitaristic perspective, well, we would say no, it is of no use whatsoever if criminals walk free. So you do the right thing or you do the wrong thing. However, we would rather, in a rational sense, we would say, well, it is rational. Well, that you, or it is, well, or let's say it is understandable. It is understandable that you are not going to some sort of incriminate the woman you love. Pretty much. I mean, everyone who knows Shakespeare, those two lovers took their lives. I mean, sorry for this stupid question. Of course, you know Shakespeare. However, but you know what I mean. So it is rational in that sense to some sort of maintain this emotional bond and so on and so forth. And then we will some sort of go into a third example. And in this third example, I recall your, or I will strain a little bit your memory. In this third example, we said you are a mobster, you are a simple soldier, and with another fellow mobster. This is important. We use some made up to rob a bank. You succeeded. Again, the police has nothing against you, and again they only depend on you snitching on each other. And again, you do not snitch. Here we said that the main cause is fear, because if you're a mobster, you some sort of assume, well, if you snitch on your fellow mobster or gang, whatever, so then your life is pretty much in danger. I don't come with witness protection whatsoever. Well, I don't know about these things, but however, what it is, but you some sort of get the idea. If you are a fellow mobster, you know this is or if you're part of a crime syndicate and so on, you know that you are firstly that your life would be in danger. This would be painful for that matter, as well as that your family is in danger, and so on and so forth. That if you would snitch on a fellow mobster, it most likely that your family would pay for it, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, you would some sort of, in an utilitaristic perspective, would it be again morally wrong, morally good, some sort of snitch on your fellow mobster, because this is the greatest utility, but it somehow does not enhance happiness. This is again, or pleasure. Rather, this is if you would snatch on your fellow mobster. Well, maybe you feel happiness. I don't know, because you contributed to lower crime rates. I don't know. Well, I don't. Maybe it is. However, it is. But it would be of greatest utility if crime is some sort of reduced. But you decide against it because of the fear and so on and so forth. So, and there it is. We said it is rational because fear is rational in that sense. But it is as well as rational in order if you understand the social mechanism of a social class or a social group, and you have to understand this is an issue between a social milieu. This could be, of course, fear. We said fear is the main determined reason. Fear, we some sort of accompanied, or we have been accompanied with fear all our discussion. We found it in Lord of the Flies. Fear plays a crucial part in your behavior. Either you act rational or irrational. However, or whatever it is, I mean, fear is something you could never switch off. This is part of your behavior. So no matter what people say that you some sort of consider an issue unemotionally without fear, whatever. No, it is clear. And again, if we some sort of bring in the deontological perspective, then again, of course, you would have to say the truth, and this would again then you would have to or snitch on your accomplice, on your fellow mobster, no matter whether you fall out of this social group, no matter whether you then would have to live as an outcast, no matter whether your family then is in danger, could be killed, whatever it is, because this is pretty much severe. If you only look at some violent gangs, they take nasty revenges. This is something you're supposed to know or should know if you're part of a gang, that when you act out or snitch on one of your fellow gang members, this could get pretty much nasty for your family. However, it is, but in a deontological perspective, you would have to say the truth, period. I mean, this is again something I would say is pretty much tricky and problematic, because firstly, this is something we have to address as well. If you are a fellow mobster, but what we have to say, of course, which is indeed very important as well, and this is that you some sort of can turn utilitarianism in a way or another. This is, I think, one of the key issues, or one of the key critics people have on utilitarianism. For example, in our examples about these prison dilemmas, you could as well as argue, let's say you are a mobster or whatever, and you could say, well, it is actually of no good whatsoever if I risk the life of my family, or if I risk the life of many, because we some sort of, or at least I assume it is something like in those mobster movies you see, because if one snitches, no one really knows who snitched and what do they know. And this could mean if you snitch, that a lot of people, maybe fellow mobsters, maybe innocent people, could die, especially their families. Let's assume that your family is not invested in this crime or in organized crime as you are. They are innocent, they do not deserve to be hideously butchered, and so on and so forth. And in that sense, actually, it could be as well that you some sort of act in an utilitaristic way, you some sort of have the greatest, or consider the greatest utility without pain, or without pain, and this would mean that you spare a lot of people hardship, and or and pain and loss if you just keep your mouth shut. This is something we would have to consider as well. So this would be in an utilitarian perspective indeed understandable. This is nothing you would say, this is bad and so on. Even though a deontological perspective tells you no matter what, you have to say the truth, because this is good, you always have to follow the truth. Well, then you would have to ask yourself, what is love? Is love good? Should I always, whatever it is, follow love? What is when there are two contradictory options are available? Should I choose between those two goods, or is some good better than others? So there is a lot of issue in ethics, and I again repeat that we will not be able to talk about it in a full length, and this would be indeed a great example to some sort of debate about this. And here again, I mean, this is the same you have here in the pandemic. Should just a few people, should we allow few people to some sort of walk free without a vaccine and so on, or are there freedoms, or is freedom a very valuable thing, and that you have to defend it by all means necessary, and so on and so forth. So this is again issues. I mean, this is what you would have, this issue you would have with the deontological ethics as well, because you would agree that freedom is a good, and that you have to some sort of preserve your freedom in a sense, but as well as you would some sort of preserve the well-being of others as well. So there are two things which we would presume as good. So what is the more valuable good you should follow? And these are indeed very, very big issues. I mean, this is something you cannot swipe away with it. And here again, it is understandable. I mean, again, we should not rush to a judgment and say, yeah, of course, by any means necessary, you have to say the truth. I mean, especially in our example with those mobsters. I mean, well, if your family is at stake, you will probably keep your mouth shut. I mean, if you really care for your family and so on and so forth, or you just do not act on fear. It could as well be that you're part of a group, of a gang, whatever what you have, and if you then would snitch on your fellow gang member, that you could sort of fall out of a favor, that you could fall out of the social class, or if you imagine, I mean, if this is an issue about race, if you are some sort of from the hoods, you have some sort of a notion, us versus them, this plays again a crucial part, and then people will most certainly keep their mouth shut. This is reality. We know things about that. So it is not only in the movies that organized crime is thriving or is strong because they can some sort of control their soldiers. It is a fact as well. So in general, and we have to be some sort of careful there in order to some sort of apply our moral judgment, because if we are not invested in that, well, it is always easy. It is always easy to say, yeah, of course, you always have to say the truth. Or some of you maybe advocates of utilitarianism whatsoever, who say no, it is if you can spare the lives of people, innocent people, then it is true or good to do the wrong thing in our example here, that you keep your mouth shut, because a lot of people could die. So assumably it is we see in those mafia movies that one snitches, a lot of people die, either innocent or villain. You should some sort of preserve life however you want it. I mean, this is again your worldview and your understanding of the world and so on and so forth. And this is, I think, key. And again, it would be worth debating about this issue a lot. But I'm on my own, and this is not the place here. However, then we will continue in our examples. So we are leaving behind those prison dilemmas with a lot of questions still not answered. I know that, however. And our next example was about this boy who desperately wanted a bike, but his parents did not grant him his wish because he has already one. He should, I don't know, cherish the one he has, or they just did not have the money. Whatever you put in this. Whatever you assume, however, and the boy then is some sort of faced with a possibility of getting the money of this bike, which he desperately wants in order to be the new, to gain the favor of people in his community, or just have a fancy new bike. However, and we then said that this boy then actually did the right thing because he was afraid of hell, because he was afraid of losing the love of his mother or his father. This played a crucial part in it. And again, if we would apply utilitarianism, then we would assume, yeah, this was the right choice. He did the right thing. He some sort of did not steal. He some sort of did the greatest utility in that sense. Assumably, crime is bad. We said crime is bad. We some sort of again assume the good of a society. Again, it could be different as well. We will talk about this later if we have enough time. However, the boy did the right thing, but not, and this is important, he did not think a bit about it as good. He should not do it out of good, or that he wants to be a good boy. No, he just fears hell because his parents portrayed a vivid or hideous image about hell, and you will burn there, and so on and so forth. So he did it actually out of an egoistic purpose. He did not gain anything from it, so he did not make any material gains. He probably feels well because he did not lose the love of his mother, or did not burn in hell, and so on and so we said in that. Well, this is indeed a very difficult question, because in one hand you would say, yeah, well, whatever it is, I mean, he just didn't steal the money, isn't that a good thing? Yeah, well, of course, but if you would then continue debating and some sort of analyzing, you would say, yeah, well, of course, but he only did it for himself, and if there comes another opportunity, like, I don't know, that he some sort of steals from someone he does not assume is a wicked person, and so on and so forth, is it then good? Or if we come back to Bonnie and Clyde, if you assume yourself as a modern Robin Hood, is it then okay to steal from other people? Like, say, you steal from those big bankers we all bailed out in the financial crisis in 2008 and 2009, and yet we did not get much anything in return. Whether this was a bad decision from the Obama administration or not, but however, you could then assume, yeah, if I steal from banks, then I could share this money equally among people. Wouldn't this be a good thing? I mean, this was in an utilitarian perspective. This would be a good thing. Huh? If you sort of steal from a bank, I don't know, and banks, well, I don't want to say that they're all corrupt, because this is, of course, ideology, but the banks there, we know, especially the financial crisis, and as well as those offshore banks, a lot of stuff, or a lot of crooked stuff is going on. This is something we cannot deny. And now everyone would, or someone would come along and say, yeah, well, what is the wrong of it if I would just steal something from the bank and would share with the people, with the poor people, with people who deserve it? Some sort of a Robin Hood. I mean, this is what you had with Pablo Escobar as well. For some, he was a criminal, a villain, a devious person who killed a lot of people, but for others he was a saint. He was a Robin Hood because he shared a lot of his wealth with others. He built hospitals, he built schools, and so on and so forth. So this is not that clear. So we, at least from a utilitarian perspective, you could have it both ways. But in a deontological perspective, in a deontological ethics, it is clear this is wrong. Stealing is wrong. There can be no denial of it, because if you do not want anyone to steal from you, then you should not go ahead and steal something from others. This is clear. In that sense. However, the boy did the right thing. I mean, this is again, we have to emphasize, he did not steal it. Whether it was out of egoistic purposes and no. And in the next example, if you remember with the celebrity who some sort of acts altruistically in order to gain favor. So I some sort of will reiterate the example. There is a celebrity, movie star, rock star, whatever you have, and and there is some upcoming chance which could play in his favor to be more popular or more famous. Let's say the new Disney or new Disney producers want a new face for the new role, and so on and so forth. So and their looking for someone who has a positive perception in the public society or in public, because this is important and key in order to be able to promote movies. So the movie industry works a lot with ads. So ads are crucial, especially they can be the key where they is able to promote a movie and get income or a lot of or rake in a lot of money, to say it simply. And in this example, but the celebrity didn't wanted to donate money, rather to buy himself a new fancy car, because he has been thinking about it. Is again, you would assume he wanted to increase his pleasure. He wanted to enjoy a new car, which, well, I don't know, are very expensive. However, he then in the end decided to donate the money to some sort of increases public perception. This example, I do not. This is very common indeed. So many celebrities do these things. I do not want to diminish good people, decent people who donate to charity in order to help people. Not at all. We do. These people are very important, and everyone needs their donations and so on and so forth. So they help a lot of people. But however, so if you ask something in exchange for your donation, this is what we would then assume. Yeah, this is not altruism at all. So someone some sort of demands something in return of his donation or of his help. This is something we would not assume as someone who is some sort of only interested in the good of others. However it is, and here again you would assume that the person acted in accordance with moral values. You would say, yeah, in an utilitaristic perspective, he acted on the greatest good or increased happiness for the greatest amount of people. This is the highest utility. This is actually a good thing. This is the result of an action. And why would we some sort of break this down? And why would we want to talk about it in detail? And why would we want to negotiate or debate about this issue? No matter what he thinks, he did the right thing. This is true. Again, we have to admit it. But what if or at least some of us will say, okay, in this particular, or in this one example, he did the right thing. This celebrity put back his own wishes, his own demands, which sort of is painful, presumably, and then donated for others. This was a good thing, but especially someone with a deontological approach will say, but he did not do it in a way to support good, but rather to support his own well-being. So he did not act in good, and if then he is faced with another choice, he could as well as do the right thing or the wrong thing. He could do the wrong choice, or if another choice appears, he could then as well as decide to not help people at all for any reason whatsoever, because he did not, and this is important, understand or the value of doing good. This is very important in that sense. So it is some sort of something you would have to talk about it in a great length. So do you have to have the mind or or do you have to have the mindset that you want to increase and help and do good, or just is the result of an action important? Will someone, or let's ask differently, will someone who has been brought up to do good continue doing good? We would assume yes. And there you have the other version, and this is if someone who some sort of only acts on the favor of society, will this person cease to do good once he does not get the favor of society anymore. Because you have to be aware societies could change. Like, imagine if you have lived in the Third Reich, in this hideous Nazi regime, it was actually good or demanded from you that you hate Jews, or that you some sort of snitch on them, that you incriminate Jews and so on and so forth. So this is pretty much this is why we some sort of talk about these things. And again, you would then assume that this is in a utilitaristic approach where you do not have any values between good and bad. It would have been right for you to, in the Third Reich, to some sort of snitch on Jews, because this would have been for the utility of, or the highest utility, because Germans were the majority, and you got even approvals and accolades for doing these things. Then we would be some sort of appalled by these kind of actions. And this is, again, one of those things which is always brought against utilitarianism. And this is something we would have to think about it as well. So is it always, or in another sense, is it always possible that you are being able to act in a deontological way? It is not that easy, like we have seen. I mean, sacrificing the love of your life for someone, for doing the right thing. Well, then you are really pious, or I don't know, just stupid. No, I don't want to make fun of this, but love is a good as well. So should you sacrifice one good for another, or is it, or are criminals not capable for love? And in our last example, this was about the guy who cheated on his wife, or should not cheat on his wife. A guy who thought about cheating on his wife with his secretary. We said that it is on an individual perspective as well as on a social perspective wrong, because you could fall out of the love of your life, because here again love plays a crucial role, as well as you could fall out of the favor of society. You could lose your friends because you and your wife have the same friends. You could, if people know about your indiscretion in work or on the workplace, you could as well as lose your job. You could fall out of the society. People would not take you seriously anymore, especially if you are a businessman. People might think you are not trustworthy. You do not share values like family and belonging, trust, because in our world where everyone deceives each other, family is pretty much the only currency you have, which you can trust, and so on and so forth. So we said on an individual and social approach, it would be not rational to cheat on your wife, but on a biological perspective, meaning to some sort of create offspring with this young attractive woman would be biologically rational. And the same is with vice versa. I mean, if you are a woman and you are single or whatever, and there's a chance you could have offspring, it is again rational. And in an utilitaristic perspective, we would again say that an individual or in an individual approach, this is maybe a little bit difficult as well, but the greatest utility, you would assume that you do not cheat on your wife, because then you would lose a lot of friends. However, you could as well as argue the greatest utility you may have is to sort of father new children. For example, in Austria, where many politicians complain that Austrians do not have enough children, this is indeed a big issue. So it would play a crucial part as well. So this is for today. Time is up. Thank you for listening to my podcast. We will continue the next time. This was Adem Kirbas from Ordu in Turkey on this sunny December day. We are still in the pandemic. Please take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Family is indeed very important. Bye.
It's finally time to start firing up the grill. From city to shore, Acme is everything you need to prep for this summer season. Download the Acme app to shop for this season's essentials any way you want. Open the Acme app, clip your deals, then order your items online. An experienced Acme associate will carefully select your groceries, bag your order, and bring it right to your car or deliver right to your door. Download the app or visit acmemarkets.com for program details.